screen door hums in the late day heat. Cicadas ticking like borrowed time. You say my name like you've said it before, like a line you already know by heart. We circle words we won't unpack, hands on the past like it might be hate. Every promise feels second hand, still we keep it anyway. I see tomorrow in your eyes. It looks a lot like yesterday. Oh my, here we go again. Same old trouble, same old friend. Love lays heavy on our tongues, sweet and sharp, it weighs a ton. Oh my, hear the warning sound. Every road just loops around. Call it fate or bad design. Oh my, every time. Light flickers, moss right prayers on the glass they never keep. We learned this dance from older ghosts who loved too hard and slept too deep. Your laugh breaks open something small. I pretend I don't hear it crack. If I leave, I'll leave a mark. If I stay, I'll take it back. You say forever like it's kind. I say nothing, read the signs. Oh my, here we go again. Same old trouble, same old friend. Love lays heavy on our tongues, sweet and sharp, it weighs a ton. Oh my, hear the warning sound. Every road just loops around. Call it fate or bad design. Shoes give out, still end up at your door. Oh my, a sign of lullaby. Oh my, here we stand, hands full of a borrowed plan. If this ache is all we know, we'll hold it close and let it grow. Oh my, say it slow. Love's a lesson we ignore. Same old trouble, yours and mine. Oh my, every time, every time. The night breeze warm, the story stays, passed along and worn just right. Oh my, we let it be. The trouble keeps us company.
I rehearsed my exit in the mirror, like I'd actually leave this time. But every promise tastes like sugar, and I keep swallowing the lie. I said I was stronger than the silence, said I didn't need your name. But every night I break my own rules just to feel you stay. I hate how hope keeps talking when I know better now. I keep lowering the volume on the truth I won't say out loud. keep choosing this ache over being alone with my help. Say you want me or don't, just don't keep me halfway alive. I'm exhausted from surviving on the hope you might decide. Look at how desperate I've become, calling your absence comfort, calling it love. I bend until I don't recognize what I'm reaching for. I said I'd never beg for anyone, but I already have before. If this is what wanting costs, I've already paid too much. Still standing here wondering how desperate I've become.